So, welcome to the annual ASCE meeting. And today we'll have a fireside chat with Carol. And for ASCE, civil engineers are infrastructure building or are infrastructure leaders building communities, whether it's the streets that we use to get to work, the doctor, the store, or places of worship, the water systems that deliver safe drinking water to all of those places, the wastewater systems that treat our wastewater and return clean water back to the environment, the drainage and stormwater systems that work to keep rain from impacting our communities or even our properties, but are being stressed by the extreme weather events that we continue to have. Civil engineers are at the forefront of providing the foundation that our communities can rely on every day. From that foundation to be strong, it has to be both resilient as well as sustainable. Today, we're going to have a conversation on the pathways of resilient communities. Today, we're joined by Carol Haddock, ASCE President elect, which is nice to say. Carol's career has been at the crossroads with Houston's infrastructure, historic development patterns, and changing climate. She's taken that experience and used it through ASCE's public policy initiatives and the Committee on America's Infrastructure to be part of ASCE's resiliency efforts. So, Carol, let's jump into all the questions.
Excellent.
So, when you think about resilience and resilience in communities, what comes to mind to you?
So, that better? Oh, there we go. So good afternoon, everybody. First off, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, not just for this conversation, but to recognize all of the leaders and the award winners that you're going to be recognizing at the end of this. ASCE is who we are and what we do because of those of us in the room. Not any one of us, but all of us collectively. What we do on a daily basis in our communities and the service that we provide to ASCE and to our communities through ASCE. So thank you. Thank you for being here and thank you for that. Um, that leads directly into resilience. So
It
when
does.
we talk about resilience, what pops into my head? And my experience has been in Houston, very different than Dallas. I will freely admit, as long as I'm in the state, we can fight with each other. But once we leave the state, we're like brothers and we defend each other
Right.
around the rest of the world. But I think about um, communities being able to withstand whatever it is that's thrown at them and to come through it with minimal disruption, preferably no damage, and really be able to get back to life almost instantly. That's not where we are today. It's not where we are today. And some of that is because we didn't design things. Not We designed things wrong. We designed them with the best knowledge we had at the time, and we designed them with the rules that we had at the time. But now they're not. The infrastructure that we have in the ground today doesn't necessarily meet the demands of our communities today. So when I think about resilience, it's how do we bridge that difference when we're looking at changing climate, when we're looking at changing weather. And as ASCE members, you can actually say changing climate, it's
Mhm.
okay. It's not a bad thing, but I do understand as members of private companies, sometimes you have to be a little more careful of whose toes you step on. But one of the great things about engineers is we are keepers of data. We are collectors of data, and we don't have to necessarily label our data to show our data. And so a lot of times when we talk about resilience, we can show that we are getting more intense rainfall without talking about why. We can show that we're having heavier vehicles on our roadways than they were designed for through the data. And so how do you get to that resilience in community? Is we have to be part of that conversation on a daily basis and making sure that we're we're not hiding behind the, oh, I'm just an engineer, I shouldn't be sitting at the table with all these elected officials. We should be sitting at the table, and that's how we begin to get to that conversation of resilience.
Well, and speaking of resilience, we recently with ASCE updated the Pathways to Resilient Communities or released an updated pathway to resilient communities. What are some key recommendations that you have from that release?
So first off, I'll encourage all of you, Google Pathways to Resilient Communities ASCE report. Um, It is about making sure that we are, as an organization, are advocating for strong building codes and standards in everything that we do moving forward. Pathways to Resilient Communities is about making sure that we are not putting more people in harm's way with what we're doing today. It's also about making sure that when we're dealing with historic um, problems that exist on the ground today. I mean, and I will tell you, in Houston, we have some places in town that should no longer have people living in those places in town. And how do we address that? Um, One of the statistics that I got from the National Building Code Council is 2 out of 3 communities do not have the building codes that they need to prevent people from being um, in harm's way. I was up in Seattle last week, and boy, I tell you what, the weather up there was nice. But one of the presentations that I sat through was one of our Bilal Ayub at the University of Maryland, and he was talking about fire codes because we were talking about wildfires throughout the U.S. that are happening, which we don't have as many in Texas, thank goodness. But they showed the areas that are susceptible to wildfires in the United States, and then they showed a map of the actual communities that have modern wildfire building codes. One map was about a third red. One map had 4 states. So we are not keeping up. And I'm not saying we civil engineers, we're sounding the alarm, we're raising the flag. But we as communities are slow to adopt these rules and these processes and these safeguards. And one of, and I will tell you, I was born and raised in Texas and I hate rules. I mean, I just do. I mean, when you tell me I got to go get a permit, I'm just like, really? I mean, I was the director of public works and I didn't want to go get a permit. I mean, that's just, we don't like being told what we can do with our property. But we've got to wade into this conversation and say, this is not about telling you what you can do or not do with your property. It's about giving you the guidance so that you don't put you, your family, and your community in harm's way when these bad things do happen, because they're going to happen. They're going to happen. We're going to have the next rainstorm. We're going to have the next ice storm. We're going to have the next wildfire. It's going to happen. And the question for us in resilience is how do we get ready? And this Pathways to Resilient Communities gives you a framework in your community to evaluate, what are my risks? What are the risks that I need to prepare for where I physically am located? Is it tornadoes? Is it hurricanes? Is it wildfires? And then make sure that you are accommodating that in your designs.
The ASCE Global actually has some really good webinars on it as well. So I'll give them a plug for that. You were guiding Houston during some fairly challenging experiences, such as Hurricane Harvey and Winter Storm Uri. So, what did you learn was challenging, was most memorable in all of those? I mean, not easy at all situations.
Yeah, so let's start off with Hurricane Harvey. Um, I was acting director. Wasn't even I
I
wasn't
thought you were director then.
No, I wasn't even director. I had been acting director for 5 weeks, and I was in New Zealand. Uh, yeah, Harvey was not supposed to hit us the way Harvey hit us. Um, and simple things that you learn from this is no one person is going to solve any of these problems. It takes your entire team. I learned some incredible lessons by not being in the middle of it. And some of the things we instituted in Houston, anytime we were going to have a major event like that coming at us, we were going to send at least one executive and one communications person somewhere outside the zone of impact. So they would have a good night's sleep. They would have power. They would have access to internet. They would have the ability to emotionally be not in the middle of the disaster and actually be able to interface with the media and interact and do the things that needed to be done. And also, one of the things that I found being outside of that zone is sometimes you have 5 people trying to do the same thing, but they're not talking to each other and they don't know it. And so when you're outside of that and you're looking at it from the side, you can actually help guide and more efficiently deploy your resources. Um, some of the other things I learned: do not underestimate the desire and the willingness of people to put themselves in harm's way because they think that's what they need to do for their job. And we had to make sure that we were very deliberate and careful about not letting people put themselves in harm's way, not letting themselves wade into 6 feet of water, not letting themselves, um, if they get hurt or worse, if they lose their life, then that is, then you're dealing with that tragedy on top of it. So how does that all relate back to resilience? That's the big
Yeah,
question for me, is how does all that relate back to
but it's
resilience?
people.
It's people. Resilience is about people. The infrastructure is here for the people. Things that we do are for the community that we serve. And so that was Hurricane Harvey. I had no idea that that much water could fall from the sky. I don't know that anybody did. And here's the scary thing: Hurricane Harvey did not take all of Houston's records. We still have records from Tropical Storm Allison. We still have records from Tropical Storm Claudette. We still have records that Harvey did not take. As bad as Harvey was, what that tells me is there can be worse. And very shortly after Harvey, I said in the community, in my lifetime, somebody along the Gulf Coast is going to experience another storm like Harvey. And people told me that I was talking crazy. And I was like, I'm not talking crazy. These are, strong tropical storms that are hitting weak cold fronts and they're stalling. That's what happened with Harvey. That's what happened with Tropical Storm Allison. I don't know about Claudette. It was way before I was. But definitely the types of events that you're going to see these again, and we cannot assume that we've had a once in a lifetime event. We're going to continue to see more, and that is the first step to resilience: is accepting that we need to understand that we're going to experience these things again.
Well, and to kind of prepare for them before they happen.
That would be nice.
It would be.
Um, so in the prepare before, mitigation is not something people like to spend money on. Um, and that's not what most of our federal programs have been set up to do. Most of our federal programs have been set up to get you back to where you started. And we're just now, as federal programs, beginning to recognize that that's not a good approach moving forward, because that assumes that you'll never experience that disaster again. And so we're starting to see the federal programs evolve. I will be quick to say we need FEMA. We do need that emergency response. We do need that immediate aftermath that they provide. We also need FEMA to evolve and help people recover in a way that they don't get back to where they started, that they get to a place that's safe for the next disaster.
So, speaking of more modern flooding, I know you grew up in the Hill Country. We had recent flooding there that is horrific, is the best word that I can use. Um, what do you think resiliency could look like in those communities?
So Houston and Dallas both um, were particularly impacted by the flooding that we saw in Kerrville, because of the large numbers of our community that were in the Hill Country. Um, I grew up in Uvalde, Texas, so I grew up on the Nueces River and the Frio rivers, not on the Guadalupe. Um, and flash flooding is something that is common. Something that I actually grew up chasing the river as a kid. We would hear the river was coming down, and we would go up and watch it come down from the hills. Uh, so when you think about that, um, just like Harvey was something we had never experienced before, the Guadalupe rose 37 feet and 45. That is something that had not been experienced in that area, and it is something that we have to plan for. That's that when you talk about resilience, it is, and honestly, y'all are all seeing this as well. You're seeing it in the politicians, you're seeing it in the families, you're seeing it in the communities. At CECon, we had Kerr County engineer speak.
He was amazing.
He was amazing. If you did not get to see him, he was truly amazing. But I will tell you that one of the things that I appreciated about his approach to everything was it was about facts, data, and action. It was, the things that need to happen. And I truly believe, and I say this as a river rat, that there are ways to live with these rivers and have the experiences and the summer camp and the RV parks and all these things in a way that can be safe. Um, and it is a way that will involve innovation. It'll involve technology. It'll involve preparedness. Um, there's already a system in Houston where the Texas Medical Center actually uses predictive radar, forward-looking radar, up to 24 hours in advance to guide them on closing submarine gates and blocking off areas and putting in flood protection based on, and the 24-hour predictive radar is really accurate. It can actually tell you where rain's going to be within miles. And it's definitely something that can be done out there. Um, we can't let the loss of life not be responded to. We have to change the way we approach these things. Um, and some of the questions that are being asked need to continue to be asked. And we as engineers need to not run away from the conversations. We need to sit, sometimes we need to sit in the discomfort and be willing to say that we need to be part of the conversation moving forward. Honestly, these communities, they deserve us to be part of that conversation.
Well, and that's the only way you can really make situations like that better prepare us for the future and learn from them. Because if you don't learn from them, they're going to happen again. What is one of the examples or one of your biggest successes on resiliency in Houston from flooding?
So I'll share a funny story with y'all actually. So it was probably a year or so after Harvey, and I had actually been appointed director at that point, and I was doing a kind of a discussion like this, but the questions were this one caught me out of left field, and it was like it's been a year. What have y'all done? And in my head, I'm thinking, what civil engineering project gets done in a year? I mean, like seriously, what and I'm like up there going, well, it takes a year to design something. I mean, but you don't want to say, well, we haven't done anything. And uh, so the first thing that came to my mind was the people in public works. And so I immediately started telling the story about how after Hurricane Harvey, we had a number of employees that came to us and said, you asked me to drive a dump truck into 4 feet of water, and I don't know how to swim. And it scared me to death. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we actually, on the clock, voluntarily offered our employees swim lessons. We partnered with the Parks Department. We took them to a local pool on the clock, paid them, introduced them to water. I mean, they started just getting your feet wet. And by the end of 8 weeks, they were jumping in with their work boots and their full gear and comfortable in the water, making sure that when we're asking them to do something, that we're giving them the tools to be resilient. And making sure that they're not wearing an uncomfortable around the neck life jacket, actually getting one that fits them as part of their gear, things like that. So that, I mean, and I got a lot of crap. Public Works director says it's a year later and all they've done is train their employees to swim. I was proud of that.
But that's probably is going to save somebody's life.
I was proud of that. But I will also say that in that same year, there were a jillion things we had done. It just hadn't been upgrading infrastructure.
Right.
It had been changing the way we responded. It had been making sure that the roadside ditches were clean. It was making sure we had a proactive way to make sure that everything we had in the ground functioned at its best. But we hadn't built larger infrastructure because that was coming down the road.
And infrastructure takes time. We're a slow moving train.
We are a slow moving train, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be part of the conversation.
Right.
And we shouldn't apologize for that either.
No.
It is what it is. If you want to design something correctly, then you need to take the time that it takes to design that correctly.
So speaking of part of the conversation, they're currently early voting started today as a note to all of y'all. So on the ballot,
Vote early.
we have Prop 4. So this funding is definitely directed for water supply source and water supply system improvement. So how can we as ASCE members get it passed besides going to vote? Although that's a main thing, please go vote.
So I've just a show of hands. How many in here know Prop 4? Yeah, about half the room. That's actually probably higher than you would get in most places that you go. And that's part of it is, I mean, how many of us don't pay attention to elections? I mean, unless it's like a really big issue to you. Okay, here's the deal. Water supply is a really big issue to you guys, whether you do water supply daily or not. This funding that has been identified by the state of Texas has the potential to change the game for Texas when it comes to water supply and it comes to reinvesting in existing water, and indirectly wastewater systems. This is a big deal, guys. Big deal. Y'all need to be talking with yourselves. You need to be talking with your neighbors. You need to be talking with your family. You need to be talking with the school, the parents at the school. I had somebody told me recently, I thought this was wonderful. Like they both went to the things with their kids, and the in this case it was the father. The father was helping with the kids, and the mother was over talking to all the other parents, going, "Hey, so do you know about this election coming up?" And talking to them about all the different things going on. And I was like, that's brilliant. Just use use every opportunity that you have. We're typically pretty good about passing these propositions, but this is one, and this is not about putting money in your pocket. I mean, work will come out of it, and everybody in the industry will benefit from work come out of it. But this is not what that's about. This is about securing the water future for Texas. If there is no water, there's no economic growth. If there's no water, communities don't have safety. The single longest increase in a community's lifespan is access to safe drinking water. 20 years. 20 years, it extends the lifespan. So this is a huge deal, guys. This is a huge, huge deal. Okay, now how many of you know a little bit about Prop 4 now? And about the same number of hands. That must be a good lunch. Everybody's like really they're really digging into that. But I seriously, guys, I can't encourage you enough. Don't sit on the sidelines for this one. Talk about it. Encourage people to vote. Even if all they do is go in and vote for Prop 4 and don't vote for anything else, go in and push that button. Vote for Prop 4.
And it's a no tax increase. So it takes from existing money and puts a dedicated source for water funding. So
For 20 years.
yeah, or possibly longer. We'll go with that. And so switching from community resilience to personal resilience. So what are specific things along because you've done a lot of different things across your career. What are specific things that you can see now looking back to prepare you for being director of public works in Houston?
So, I always tell people that probably the best thing I did my entire career was just show up. I mean, if there was something that was going on, I showed up. If it sat at the registration desk, showed up on Saturday morning at the museum, if I got an email asking me to be on a committee, I did it. Now, sometimes I probably should have said no once or twice because there was too much on my plate. But the
That's
truth
all of us in ASCE.
that is, it is definitely our, um, I don't think addiction's the right word, but it's definitely
Yeah.
our,
Personality.
yeah, yeah. Um, but you know, if you can convince people to show up on a Saturday morning on their time off and join you in a volunteer event, you can lead a project team every day of the week. If you can get a group of diverse volunteers to agree on accomplishing something together, then you can not only lead a project team, you can lead a whole group, you can lead a whole department. Those are the types of skills that you learn as you go through this. Take every opportunity. Take every opportunity. Now, some of you are going to say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to lead a department. I don't want to lead. You know what? That's equally as important because I always knew that I needed the people that were going to focus on the technical to bring me the good data and bring me the good information. That's an important part of the team. So part of this is doing those things. Now, I will tell you, I am currently having to translate and adapt all of those skills as I go from a career in the public sector back to where I've started my career in the private sector. But let me tell you, the private sector of the 1990s is not the private sector of the 2020s. It's a totally different place, I'm going to call out Black and Beach and say thank you because I'm not sure they'd say it's been a smooth transition. It's been kind of a bumpy road. And as we go through this transition, taking those same skills that have served me really well and how do they fit differently into this chapter of my life? How do they fit differently in this phase of my life? Some of them don't fit well. Some of them fit really well. And some of them you have to adapt and relearn as you go through this. Then, also, how do I take this and take all those private, public, university, and apply those to this president elect and ultimately the president of ASCE? Here's the deal, guys. ASCE only exists because y'all. If we didn't want to get together and talk about these things, we wouldn't need ASCE. And that's why we exist. So I encourage all of you. And Sean, you just came off the board. Thank you for doing that for 3 years. It's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift for a company to support somebody doing this. To show up, to advocate for, to listen to, and to seek a mutual path. And so when you ask me, what did I learn? That's it. To advocate for, to listen to, and to seek that mutual path. Whether you're the leader, you're the follower, wherever you are in the organization, that is what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. And I think ASCE gave me a lot of practice at that. And I think a lot of that really, really translated over to being the director of public works. Now, because we have time and because I'm talking, um, I didn't do it well the whole time. I drove myself to the hospital 3 times 1 year because I thought I was having a heart attack. It was stress. And I was not doing a good job of balancing. I was not, I was letting things get to me in a way. Actually, I had a doctor sit me down and say, you are relatively healthy. You will not be if you don't fix this. And I had to literally step back and figure out what it was that was causing all that stress. I personally went through the mindfulness-based stress reduction courses. There are lots of different tools and opportunities out there. Some people have chosen the therapy route. Some people have chosen other skill developing route. Hey, let me tell you guys, mental health is physical health. It is equally as important. Have to do all those things. What it gave me was it gave me the tools to recognize the first indicators when I was letting the stress get to me, to recognize those first cues that I could say, oh, something's getting to me and I need to address this. I need to step back. The other thing you have to learn the further up you go in an organization is how not to let what you're feeling internally influence those around you. Because if you're having a bad day or you're having a rough day or you're feeling very uncertain, sometimes you got to exude certainty even when you don't feel certainty. And so those are some of the skills that really helped me get to where I am.
Which is great advice for all of us. But speaking of your presidential term, you're currently elect and then president in 27. So, what are you most excited about in the next few years of ASCE? Which is a very broad question.
It's a broad question. So when we were sitting here at the table, I said, nothing.
Which, you know,
Yeah,
we
no,
wouldn't be doing this if you weren't excited.
I'm excited. So I will tell you, for me, I've been asked for years when I was running for president, and my answer was always, if the society's needs and my desires and my abilities and time align, I'll stick my hand up. And they did. And so I did. But at the end of the day, this position is not about me. This position is bigger than any one person and any one person who gets the privilege of carrying this title. So what am I excited about? I'm excited about the opportunity to serve ASCE. I'm excited that my years of living through and being involved in change are aligning with where the society is right now. So how many of y'all know that we're getting a new executive director? A few. So Tom Smith has announced he's retiring at the end of this calendar year. He has been with ASCE 29 years and he has been executive director 11. It's a big change. That's a big change that we're going to be going through. So we're currently before the end of this month, you'll see the actual posting go out for our replacement. Um, right now we're having great conversations about what does that job posting even look like? Who does it?
Very different than it was 11 years ago, I'm sure.
Very different than it was 11 years ago. And Tom came from internal. So internal, external. What does a new person coming in do to the culture of ASCE staff? Does it do to the culture of ASCE volunteers? How does this help us bridge this next change that as we continue to evolve forward? Uh, we're also changing our annual conference. We will not have an annual conference in 2026. The one we just finished in Seattle is the last of the old format. And in 2027, March 1st to 5th in Philadelphia, mark your calendar, plan to be there. In some ways, we're going forward and backwards simultaneously. We're going back to where all our conferences were together. If you go back and look, ASCE used to not have all these split out conferences. Now we're still going to have specialty conferences. Don't worry, guys. We're still going to have pipelines. We're still going to have, we're still going to have
institutes will still happen.
Yeah, institutes will still happen, but most of the institutes are coming into this larger conference. So I have the opportunity to go to a conference where I can see stuff that I really want to see, but I can also see one or two or three items from something I'm interested in, but I wouldn't go to a whole nother conference. And so it's a great opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to that. And it's not easy. There is still controversy. There's still angst about going back to this joint conference. How's it going to work? Are we
Change
really
is
going to
not
get
easy.
change is not easy. Are we going to get 6,000 people to show up? That's our goal. See 6,500 people to show up to Philadelphia. Now, here's the other cool thing about Philadelphia. So Philadelphia's got a huge celebration starting 2026. The 250 by, what is 250? I don't know.
250 years.
Bicentennial?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll make up a word. Semi-bicentennial, something like that. I don't know, 250 years. So we'll still be in the 250th year. We're there in March of 2027. And it's a full year-long thing. So there's going to be a lot of amazing historical stuff unrelated to ASCE that is going to be happening in Philadelphia at the time. So I'm excited about the people. I'm excited about the prospects. I'm excited about the convention. I'm excited about getting a new executive director. I mean, Yeah, my mom says that you were one of these people that you wake up and you're like, what's going on today? And you're happy about that you don't spend a lot of time dwelling in what was going on yesterday. And so I want to celebrate Tom and his service. And then I'm going to wake up today and be like, how do we move forward from this? And where do we go? And how do we make this the best that it can be?
So to close up time, what would you give advice or encouragement to our student members, to the younger members, and semi-selfishly to the mid-career people as well?
So in some ways it's the same advice. It may be a
Yeah.
little different. Um, you need to follow passion. I was asked by some students from California, um, about advice of walking in my footsteps, and my advice to them is don't. Carve your
But
own
you
path.
have great footsteps to walk in.
Well, but that's the thing is, this is my story,
It
and this is my journey. And so, yes, learn from it, and sometimes use the footprints because sometimes it's helpful to
right.
to make it through it, 3 or 4 steps. But at the end of the day, you need to be comfortable with what it is that you're doing. You need to, I always tell people that the harder the classes got in college, the easier they got because you were interested.
Yeah.
And if you weren't interested, that you probably weren't in the right classes. Feel the same way about careers. It's that you yes, there's going to be days that are hard. There're going to be weeks that are hard. I always tell people I loved my time at the city. Loved it. I didn't always enjoy every day. And that's true of everything. And so when I talk to students, be open, learn, take every opportunity. I lived in DC for a year fellowship, and people would say, "Hey, Carol, do you want to?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what do I wear?" They're like, "You don't even know what it is." I'm like, "I don't care. Let's go. What are we doing?" And take every opportunity to be exposed to learn. Don't be afraid to speak up. Sometimes the best way to speak up is just by asking questions. Help me understand. I don't understand what we're doing right here. So let me see if I've got this right. Um, those are questions that engage people to help teach you. And that's part of what it is. But the other thing is, particularly for your students and younger members, oh my goodness, guys, y'all have so much to teach me. I'm still trying to learn how to automate emails going directly into my calendar. And I mean the tools and I tell people all the time, I was like, I am technology second language, and I always will be. And I consider myself to be really good at it, but it's still a second language. It's not a first language for me. And so you have just as much to teach me as I have to teach you. Find those mentor relationships both ways. Sometimes it's sideways, sometimes it's up the organization, sometimes it's a friend in a complete different company. Now, owners of companies, ignore this for a second. You're going to find your next job through a friend in another company, and not because you are looking for it, but because as you interact with people, you get the cultures of all these different companies. You get the cultures, and you find the leaders you want to work. Find a leader you want to work with. And with is a very important term. I always tell people that I worked with the mayor of the city of Houston. I didn't work for him, I worked with him because we worked together to serve Houstonians. So find that culture where you're with your team to succeed. If you're not in the right fit, don't wait 2 years. Find find the right fit and go towards it. And don't run away for something. Run toward. Now for your mid and don't be afraid to stick your hand up. For those of you that are training people, when you go on vacation, freaking go on vacation. Let people step into your shoes and try to succeed and make decisions, and don't hamper them. Let them learn for 3 or 4 or 5 days. You can fix it when you get back if it's really that bad. And I promise you it's really not going to be that bad. And it's an amazing opportunity for somebody to get the confidence for those 3 or 4 or 5 days to make those decisions and to defend why they made those decisions. So for your mid career, help those next people up, and for those of you that are helping mid career people, give them those opportunities. That's how you grow. How you grow.
It's constant growth throughout your career.
I'm still growing. If I wasn't growing, I wouldn't be doing this.
So thank you for joining us today. It has been amazing to have the chat, and I'm hopefully everyone learned something across the crowd. So we're excited for your time as president of ASCE and having a fellow Texan up there. And thank you for joining us today for our honor and award ceremony. So,